So we need to discuss Michigan. This is a topic that we have not talked about yet, and it's something that I think begs to be talked about now. Um, for those of you that live under a rock and you're college football fans, Michigan is under investigation by the Big Ten and the NCAA regarding a sign stealing scandal, right? Which stealing signs is not inherently illegal. If you watch somebody do a sign and then you write it down and you know next time that's the sign for a play, that's not illegal. The issue is when you send a staff member to go scout other teams that you play and record their signs. That's when it becomes an issue. And although it may be a stupid rule because, everybody has game tape now, so you can just watch it from the sidelines, it's still a rule. And still a rule that was broken. Now, this story has actually exploded over the past couple of, a week now, where we've got Venmo, transactions going on from a staff member to a certain person to buy seats, to multiple, top 10 teams that they would potentially face in the playoffs. Apparently, sending the information to other teams such as South Carolina and Tennessee, I believe it was, both to play Clemson. So there's just a lot going on here. And recently today, apparently that same scout, quote unquote, for Michigan was seen on the Central Michigan sidelines scouting Michigan State. Now, how he got on the Central Michigan sidelines with a hat and everything is beyond me. Somebody needs to step up security. But it begs the question of how long has this been going on, right? To what extent has it been going on? And also, what should the repercussions be? Now, the NCAA said that it would be about a year, 2 years before they complete their investigation. Like always, the NCAA sucks. We know this. But the Big Ten could step in this year and make them not eligible for the Big Ten championship game. That's a real possibility. Do I foresee that happening? No, but it is a possibility. So in your guys' opinion, what do you make of this scandal and what should the repercussions be moving forward?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and go. So first off, let me just state this. For the last 3 years, if I picked against Michigan, I want that win vacated from them, and I get that back on my pick'ems, okay? Let's just put that out there.
It was a lot.
Yeah, a lot. Because, somebody mentioned this the other day, and I kind of thought this too when I thought back on it, is because I remember when it felt like there was a shift in Michigan. Was like I picked Ohio State to just ransack them one year, and then Michigan just turned around and throttled them. I was like, and then somebody mentioned, did it ever just feel like Michigan just got good out of nowhere? Like they weren't ever bad, right? But they just all of a sudden they were like 12-0 and they're in the playoffs, right? It was like, what Michigan. So for me, Freddie, you kind of mentioned this. I don't really want to take your idea, but this could be death penalty worthy almost. Because the first thing that you got to think of here, it's fight or flight for Harbaugh. Does he try and make a move to the NFL? I saw this week that the NFL might not take him, and he might have to serve a suspension no matter what, even if he does go to the NFL as a head coach. So he's probably going to stick around in Michigan. But what happens if this all becomes true? How many games did you win? Because, you're not going to go sign stealing for Central Michigan, if you're going to play Central Michigan or if you're going to play Tulane or something like that, right? But if you're doing all this for Ohio State, for Penn State, for Michigan State, for Iowa, Wisconsin, those big games that have a chance to shift you in the Big Ten championship or the playoffs or a bowl game, yeah, definitely, because we also mentioned that Harbaugh went back and deleted about 3 years worth of tweets and stuff, which means that could be a timeline for us there, right? And so if it's been 3 years of them doing this and they've won those games, been to the playoffs, been to a national championship game, whatever, and this is the reason how they got there, not just off pure talent and all that stuff, then yeah, this is something that, maybe not a death penalty, but a Big Ten championship and also bowl game penalty where they can't do it for a number of years. But Quinn, I feel like you have a lot better idea than I do. So I want to hear you, Quinn.
Well, I want to start with we don't fully know how deep this goes. We're working off a lot of speculation, a lot of breaking news reports, not a lot of hard facts, and we won't be working off a lot of hard facts for a while. What I will say is the timeline shows that all of this started going into the 2021 season. So if we go back a year to the COVID season, Michigan was terrible. And there was a lot of pressure on Harbaugh's job. He took a pay cut to keep himself at Michigan.
He did.
Then they lose one game early that year. Who or were they undefeated? No. Yeah, they might have been. Were they undefeated in 2021?
We're going to look it
up. No,
they
lost to Michigan State. They got beat by Michigan State and Kenneth Walker.
Yeah.
Aside from that game, they get that big win over Ohio State. And it just, for me, that felt like a storybook thing. Like, okay, cool. They finally broke through. It is what it is. You go to the playoffs, you get curb stomped by Georgia. And then we go into the offseason, you start looking for NFL jobs. And I thought that was weird. I was like, you've been at Michigan now for 6 or 7 years. You've already done the NFL thing. You have your best season yet as the head coach, and you're trying to get out. Why? Then you go to last season. They do even better in the regular season. And he's still looking around the NFL when that year's over. All I'm saying is if this comes out as true, I'm the first to defend traditional sign stealing. Like, you're at the game, you see it, you steal it, that's fine. Everyone's done it. They've done it for decades. They've done that since your papa played offensive line. Like, that's how long they've been doing that.
Right.
But with what they've been accused of, I'm not a fan of taking anything from the past away. Never have been. I hate it for record-keeping purposes.
Yeah.
However, I am a fan of punishing the institution and the coach in charge for a foreseeable amount of time going forward. So I think death penalty might be a little harsh. I also think it's going to be hard for the NCAA to enact anything as strict as the death penalty going into the future of college football. I mean, we're talking about they won't wrap this up for a year or two. How much power are they going to lose between now and then? Because they've already lost a bunch. So a lot of the weight falls on the shoulders of the Big Ten and its member institutions for what they want. I think it's very probable you see Michigan vacate if this comes out as true, vacate their ability to win the Big Ten for a year to 3 years as the punishment for this. So we'll see. But that's where I kind of, if this all turns out to be true, that's kind of where I see it heading, is a year to 3 of not being able to compete in the playoffs or in the Big Ten championship. And the most you can do is win in the regular season and ruin people's seasons.
And one more thing I'll add, Freddie, if you have anything, I'm sorry. Their next 4 games are Purdue, Penn State, Maryland, and Ohio State. Now that the national media and everything's on them, watch out for the Penn State away game and then Ohio State as well. How much closer are those games, or if they lose those games, right? But I'll go along with what Freddie said. With the last 4 weeks, if you can figure out that they legitimately did this, Big Ten, you can prove that, I think you have to keep them out of the championship game. I do not think you allow them to do that. And if so, what does that mean for playoff implications? Say they win out, they go 12-0, but they don't play in that Big Ten championship game. Does Michigan still stick around in that top 4 as a playoff contender, Freddie?
Yeah, and I think that's something to keep in mind too, is that the playoffs is not associated with the NCAA, right? So the playoff committee and their board members could come up and say, hey, you've got a 3-year playoff ban, period. And they can do that. They have the power to do that. They could do that this year. And the new playoff rankings just came out. They have Michigan 3rd, behind Ohio State and Georgia, I believe it is. So yeah. I don't know, man. This could get real sticky and real messy real quick because, as I mentioned, they're also accused of giving the information to opposing teams in order for that team to win against a team that they didn't want to play in the playoffs.
Yep.
Like, think about that. Like, if they were trying to manipulate who they play in the playoffs, by giving illegal information to another team, that is in and of itself worth the death penalty to me, if that is true. I mean, that's manipulation at its best. That's fraud. And I'm afraid, just like you said, Quinn, Jim Harbaugh, man, you might want to quit, dude. You might want to quit and sit out 2 years, then find you another job. Or sit out a year and then find you another job. Because this is ridiculous to me. There's not been a cheating scandal like this in my lifetime. You know, obviously the SMU thing happened, but that was before my lifetime, and they got the death penalty. Now, you know, whether it's worse or not, who knows? But like you both said, the NCAA does not have hardly any power anymore, and I don't see them gaining any more power in the future. And they're the only ones that can institute the death penalty. But yeah, Michigan is in a heap of trouble, and it can only get worse from here, I'm afraid.